I'm here today with a very close and personal friend of mine that I have known for quite some time. And before I introduce him, I want to talk about the reason why we're having this very special yet tragic interview. I think when people think about unarmed black men being shot by people in official positions of any sort, they think about people like George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And all across the country, and I always say that young Tamir Rice out of Cleveland was the one that broke my heart. But all across the country, these events are happening. And we have a flashpoint that is bubbling up here in Erie, Pennsylvania. We want to discuss it. We want to make sure that we discuss this in a responsible manner. There's a lot of people hurt. We want to discuss this in a respectful manner because the young man that we're talking about today was the young man by the name of Marchello Woodard. They called him Cello lovingly. Mr. Marchello Woodard was shot multiple times as he was in his car near his girlfriend's house on East 27th Street here in Erie, Pennsylvania, between Parade and Wallace Streets, shortly before 10 p.m. on July 2nd. He drove his car west after being shot. He was shot 5 times in the chest, I think it was. And Erie police stopped the car at East 27th and German Street. He was then taken to the hospital, later on pronounced dead. I want to say that was around 10:08 p.m. when he was pronounced dead. Needless to say, this has sparked an outrage, an outcry of justice, for justice, by a large swath of the community. We want to bring context to this, and to that end, we bring our brother D to the table. I'll let brother D give you his work and how long he's been doing it. I'd like for you to start with that because it matters.
Okay, thank you, Brother Marcus. And it is indeed an honor to be here with you. Like you say, we go way back, and probably one of my first times really being on television and being comfortable was with you. And so we do have that history. But I'm Daryl Craig. I was born in Buffalo, New York. I'm 69 years old. I am a pastor of House of Prayer Erie. I am officially the community liaison for the city of Erie. I'm one of the founding members of My Pride and Joy, the Erie Bluecoats. If you look at any of the stories you've read about me or seen in the newspaper, most time they start out with former gang members. So yes, I have a past and a history in the streets, very long history in the streets. I was a middle child of 9 children, grew up with a mother and father that was very active in the community, very active in education. I came up in a time when the social consciousness of black people were at an all-time high. We had Malcolm X, we had Eldridge Cleaver, we had Angela Davis, we had Martin Luther King, Jesse Jackson, I can go on and on. I went through the riots. I experienced a lot of different things happen in this country. As it pertains to this matter, as Marcus was talking, one of the first dead bodies I've ever saw in my life was a man named Gates. Gates was a street figure, I'll say that. I won't go into the details of what he did in the streets, but it involved numbers and things of that nature, who was killed by his parole officer. And what stood out the most to us was after the parole officer shot and killed him, they left his body in the middle of the street. You can't move a dead body until the coroner sees it, you know that. Mm-hmm. But they handcuffed him behind his back. And that picture was in the newspaper. I don't know if it still exists. A dead man handcuffed behind his back. And I had to be 14 or 15 years old then. So do the math, I'm 69 now. So this incident really, really resonates with me in that 45 years ago, we had something like this happen. And my generation and those that were around, we didn't say a word. There was not a peep. And Gates was carted away by the meat wagon, as they called it, from the morgue. And that was that. There was some rumblings from his family, but nothing major, nothing on the level of this.
So you set this conversation up well because, much like that incident you just described, Marchello was shot by his parole officer, right? And we'll get into the facts of that. Absolutely. And so especially with being the liaison of the African American community in the mayor's office, on top of your ministry at church on top of your ministry with the Blue Coats. You know, this nonviolence initiative that goes back years, that was started from a former pastor and mentor of yours that has gone on to glory since then, Pastor Gaines.
Yes.
You have a lot of touch points with this particular conversation. Talk about the day of the incident and how you started to hear of what happened as you go into what actually played out that morning or that evening.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it was a normal busy day. You know what I mean? I'm feeling this, doing that, dealing with my own personal stuff. My wife hadn't been feeling too well, just come home from the hospital. So just trying to keep my head above water. I finally make it home. You know, it's about 9:30, I think, something like that. My phone ring. It's a young man, Hard Rock, Shannon Smith. Said, Rev, he calls me Reverend Daryl. They just shot somebody. The police just killed somebody, huh? What happened? Yeah, I think it's Cello. All right, man, let me get on the phone and get busy. Call me back if you find out for sure. And the reason why this was important to him to let me know, Cello had just came to church. Cello had just visited us 2 weeks before that. He knows Cello's relationship with my son.
Got it.
He knows my relationship with Cello's father. And so very long and very deep, you know. And before I could make a phone call, I'm reading to see if I got any texts because my phone alerts were up, and I had gotten some texts from the city and other people. The phone rang again, and it was Shateria Franklin, the mother of Cello's 7-year-old son.
Yeah.
Frantic.
Right.
Frantic, you know, in disbelief. You know what I mean? And
A young woman who was a community servant on the rise herself, who gives of herself in large measure to young women and the people of the community.
one of my young sheroes,
Yeah.
as I always tell
Yeah.
her, I have several of those young women that are out here that are standing for Black excellence and excellence, period, that I hope that I encourage, you know what I mean, and do anything I can to help. So, but more than anything in that moment, she was a mother who had just got the worst news possible for her child, you know, and she kept asking, how am I going to explain this to my son? How am I going to get my son to understand? How am I going to protect him in this moment from all of the stuff that's getting ready to swirl around this? You know, the activities
Right.
and the chants and the cries and all of this. She's very concerned about that, you know. And there was another concern that she voiced, you know, that other people would take this moment and misuse it. That came out. And that was one of my concerns as well, you know. And so that news rattled me on so many levels. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. And immediately my mind went to standing in the pulpit, watching Shannon and Cello come through those doors. I was already up. And Cello went to the left. Shannon sat right down in the middle. Cello went around to the left side. And he sat by that second window right behind Mother Naomi. And he didn't look up at any time. His head was down, and I don't know, in my mind, he was seriously coming to hear from God. I felt that. He wanted to hear from God.
Right.
You know, and that's the only thing that I felt was, this brother needs a word.
Right.
He came because he's serious about a word.
And you recognize that in yourself because you've gone down that road
Absolutely.
years ago.
I saw me.
Yeah.
I saw me in that walk. I saw me in that walk. And we had the sermon, and he came back, and he waited, you know, to speak with me after the service was over, and we embraced as we always do whenever I'm in his presence, wherever we bumping each other. You know, I love you, man. Want you to come back. I'm gonna come back, Unc. You know, because that street thing, we refer to each other, nephew, Unc.
Right.
You know, and thought no more of it, but I was very happy. I felt honored that he came to hear me. You know, because there's certain individuals who life is so real for them, and life can be so harsh for some of us
Yeah.
in different seasons of our life, but most of the seasons of our life, if that makes any sense. And for somebody who's had these harsh experiences to look to us in that moment as if though we can offer anything of
Right.
value to them, I don't take that for granted.
Right.
I don't take that for granted. If he never walked back in those doors, if I never spoke to him again, if the next time I see him, he hated my guts, in that moment, he obviously felt that I could give him that word he was looking for.
Yeah.
Me, with my history.
Yeah.
And so, this is why I don't play with this. It is so valuable what we do, what you do, what I do, these moments that we share, because so much is riding on it.
Yeah.
The next generations, our own babies, Miles, Deshauna, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is, they riding on what we do and us doing it right.
See, you're uncovering the human element of this that I really wanted the viewer to connect to. And there's a reason, obviously, that he came to your church. There's a reason, obviously, that Shateria reached out. But it was the words of Shateria that I want to key on for a second, because it does go to one of the things that we do see developing with this particular case, is she doesn't want the moment to be misused. And I sat in silence. I remember an old African proverb, sometimes when standing in the dark, the wisest course of action is to stand still. Because you don't know what's around. Give it a second to just feel your surroundings before you start venturing out. And I was hearing, it was a police officer that shot Cello, and people were up in arms, and it was, F the police. Wasn't a police officer.
Yep.
Then I heard it was a state trooper. And all these state troopers. Wasn't a state trooper. So there was a lot of misinformation, and you get the emotional aspect of it. I mean, God knows that we understand being emotional, but the rush to judgment, I think this is one of the byproducts of social media, is that everybody wants to be the first to say it. Everybody wants to be the first to post it. Everybody wants to be the first to hold the sign up. And so we know that the majority, their hearts are pouring out to the victim and the victim's family. But there's always that group who says, this is my opportunity to make it known that I'm on the scene. And so she voiced that, right? And so you're hearing the facts of the case in an official capacity, because you have been called to serve on both sides of this.
Absolutely.
In an official capacity, right? You're a bridge. And you got your ear to the streets, and the streets trust you. Talk about how these narratives started to overlap. So you're hearing what happened to Cello. Then you're also from an official capacity, because I'm assuming that the mayor, the police chief, these people are calling you. Tell us about that.
So, I told you I started checking my phones. So I've gotten texts from the city, right? And let me tell you about that narrative that you say that jumps out there, and we go with the first information. I keep my resignation on the back of my tongue. 2 words, I quit. They've been ready since March 18 of last year, the day I started. Because the minute it becomes something that I have to compromise who I am,
it's done.
And it can't set well in my heart, I'm done. So that was the first thing that I said, I may be having to pull this resignation off the back of my tongue if the police have killed this young man unjustly. It's a natural impulse. I work for the city. I can't work with a city that's killing our young men. I can't do that. I won't do that.
Right.
So when I looked at the phone, it was the mayor's administrative assistant, Renee, and she had heard, and she was letting it be known it wasn't EPD.
Right.
The chief was on there. It wasn't my guys.
Well, it's important to make that distinction.
Yeah, Brother D, make sure people know that we had nothing to do with this. You know what I mean? Because they understand the validity of situation. They understand how delicate the relationships are, whether people believe they do or not. They do. You know, and this is what makes it easier for me to be at that table.
Right.
You know, because they have listened and they have voiced the genuine, authentic concern that I need to be comfortable in moments like this.
And they knew who they were hiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
When they brought you to City Hall, they knew exactly who they were hiring.
It was a 2-year process.
Yep.
Getting me to that point, you know. And so then I got concerned because I know that there's that element that you just described perfectly. We, in all situations, have to be careful because for whatever reason, there's going to always be those who will latch on to a moment, to a thing for their own agenda. Shateria spoke on that again publicly. We met Saturday, and she stopped the meeting. This is when Brother Mike Outlaw had brung people from Pittsburgh to help kind of guide us how to deal with this process intelligently and officially in an official capacity, right? And so while we're in there, Shateria said, I have to say this. And she stopped the meeting. She said, listen, and she didn't say anybody in particular. She spoke to everybody, all of us. Y'all are not giving us a chance to breathe. Y'all are not thinking about, we haven't even processed this information yet. We haven't even fully received this news and accepted it yet.
Yeah.
We still haven't even made details for a homegoing celebration. She spoke very passionately, very powerfully. And I was so glad, like yourself, I shut my mouth when I first got the news. I did not react. I waited for God to allow me to respond if he felt I should respond, right? And so I listened and I tried to be effective. And my position from point one was the most important voices in this equation is the family. Nobody's opinion, nobody's feelings, nobody's voice is more important than the family. They are the ones that are paying this cost.
That's right.
They are the ones that will never, ever be able to move on with their lives in that area. Yes, they'll go on, but they'll never be able to move on from that. There will always be a memory. There will always be a moment when they'll recall Cello's impact and him not being there and why he's not there. All of that. And so we as his brothers and his sisters and his uncles and his aunts and his friends and his community must prioritize the family. We've done what we've done, and whether it was the right thing to do in the beginning, we've already done it. We can't go back in time, but we can. And I noticed that the individuals I've been talking to, they've been consistent. And that's why I've continued to talk to them. Jerry Roberts, Sarah Bridget, Malcolm Pulliam, they have always referenced the family. And that's why I support them and the movement that they're doing. Anytime it looks like it's beyond the family, I have to back up. I can't do it. You know what I mean? Because I want to respect that family more than anything. And I don't know about other people. I don't know other people's agendas. But I do know that if the family is not on board with it, I should not be involved with it. And so we met again last night over at the Quality of Life. And that was the consensus from Pastor Cook and Pastor Gaines and everybody in the room, Black Wall Street. We all said that two things need to happen. Those who organize this movement, we need to be speaking with them and making sure that we're in harmony and not moving against them. We need to support these young voices because, you know, I've told you this since the day we met. I feel like I'm John the Baptist now. I got one foot in the Old Testament, the other in the New. one for the old school, the other in the new school. And my job is simply to open doors for the next one like yourself and say, yeah, okay, I did make a splash, but wait till you see who's coming next. Like he did for Jesus, you know, make straight the path of the one to come. So I feel that way, but I only am trying to open these doors for those who are serious about crossing over and doing it the way it's supposed to be done.
Right.
Right, with the right reason for doing it. So I can't align myself with any, this is my moment to shine. I'm not doing that. I'm not aligning myself with anything that is not healthy for my community. Okay? I know that we're angry. I know that we're mad. But a lot of that has to do with not cello, but history. A lot of that has to do with not cello, but my own personal stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I just want to be accurate and precise in what I do and say about this issue. More than anything, I want justice for all of us.
Right.
Because justice for cello is justice for me. Justice for cello is justice for your children, justice for my children, justice for you. We do need justice. There are some serious questions.
Well, let's go into some of the particulars to address some of those questions. One of the things with the agents that were involved, I want to say it was 2 of them. They weren't specific, but with the agents that were involved, they're removed from their regular duties as the Pennsylvania State Police continue to probe this. They're on, I want to say, administrative responsibilities. Also, they were not wearing body cameras. I don't know how customary it is for parole agents to or not to be wearing body cameras, but the fact that the news, this is all from the Erie Times News, the fact that the news mentioned that they weren't wearing body cams leads me to believe that at some point they were supposed to have been or should have been introduced.
Right.
Do you know anything about that?
Not as of yet.
Because if they don't wear body cams, why would they mention it in the newspaper?
I am looking into it because my question was this, that any law enforcement agency in this day and time, or representative of in this day and time, interacting with the general public should be equipped.
Right.
And be able to give an accurate account of that engagement with the public.
Right.
It's compounded, the concern about that is compounded that anybody licensed to carry a gun and use deadly force better be able to give an accurate account. Because there's no way in the world that you've been licensed and I've said to you, you are now duly authorized to use deadly force if necessary. There's a piece of equipment that will uphold you, that will justify you doing that.
In the event that you
you're
have to,
not
right.
using it.
Right. The powder keg of law enforcement of any kind and inner city folk, black folk in particular, has been present for so long. We watched the overflow of it for George Floyd because we were all sequestered because of COVID.
Yep.
People forget that. And we were forced to sit at home and watch this thing play out.
Yeah.
And it reminded America that we have not overcome this particular issue yet. And so it does bring about the whole idea of when it comes to body cameras, things along those lines, you would think that every agency across the country that is remotely linked to law enforcement would be hypervigilant in that area.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then in this situation, I myself have been on parole. I'm no stranger to that interaction, right? And I don't believe any of my POs ever showed up with a gun at any time. I've had them do compliance checks at my home, but not frequently. And traditionally, and I don't know, this is the part where we have to be careful because there's stories that are saying that this young man was at the end of his stint on parole, if he was, if that's accurate, right? And normally, when an individual only has a matter of days, weeks, and sometimes even months, they turn them loose say, listen, do what you have to do. If anything happens, you call us.
Right. Keep your
But you
nose
don't
clean.
have to come back.
Right.
Okay? You come down and sign your papers on the day of. But until then, good luck. Right? Because you've shown that you're walking this thing
Right.
off. You're almost at the finish line. Why would I want to make it harder for you to get to the finish line at this point by harassing you, antagonizing you, you know?
I know that the district attorney, Elizabeth Hertz, was saying that, she asked for the community's patience in detailing, as they try to detail this investigation, that there will be a prosecution if the evidence warrants that. I noticed that they're trying to manage expectations, and they should try to manage expectations. Right. But I hope that they do find out. You don't want to question anybody's motives, but the fact that this young man, this man, 43 years old, was allegedly almost off of parole. What was the impetus behind them going at this late hour,
right,
at this late time of his parole?
Right.
So I'm hoping in this investigation that comes out. What do you say to the protesters? Because she's calling for calm. You've got these other groups. Everybody's calling for calm or what have you. What would you say to people that are out there protesting right now on behalf of Marchello Woodard?
On behalf of Marchello Woodard, I'll say, first of all, we have to stay the course. We have to stay the course. We have to mean it. When we said Justice Marchello, we needed to mean that. But we also got to come away with this, with something tangible to show his kids and his family for all this energy. In light of the statement by the DA, it's kind of a touchy situation because Beth Herz has probably been the most beloved DA we've had. You know, Jack Dennery did a pretty good job. His work with Unified Erie in that. But Beth
The
Herz,
district attorney that preceded her.
yeah, she is highly visible, comes to everything. A woman of faith, genuinely, to me, she comes across as being anything but disingenuous. And I almost looks like she's been put in one of the toughest spots of her career.
I bet.
You know, which I'm puzzled. I don't know how this works, but why was the investigation taken over by another agency, but dropped in the lap of our DA? You get what I mean?
Interesting question.
So if the state police is running the investigation, why aren't they prosecuting it? I don't know the answer to that question. But when I heard that, I said, wow, because when and if this thing is decided, depending on, it puts the onus back on Erie County.
Yeah.
But it's not an Erie County matter.
Right.
So that has been puzzling me.
I bet.
Trying to wrap my head around it, trying to stay out their way and not flood them with all kind of questions at this time, because I know this got to be the toughest one, and probably will be the toughest one that anybody that we know for Erie has to weigh in on. So I'm very interested to see how all that plays out, the where and the why that took place that way, in the first place. You know what I mean? I don't have the answer to that.
There is a place for protesters. And certainly the value of protest is just that, is to put pressure on people who make decisions so that they understand that there is a community accountability piece. And we are not letting this thing off the hook. There is 1,000% a place for protest. What I want everybody to appreciate, though, using that analogy of Sun Tzu's Art of War, that you also need somebody who legislates. You need people who are sitting in seats of power and decision-making legislatively to say, what do we need to change from back here to fix this thing? You need somebody to handle diplomacy. Somebody has to sit down with the people that are making decisions, with the people that may be the problem, and say, how do we fix this? I say all that to say, not everybody can be the one to hold the sign up and say, I'm mad and I'm upset. There's a place for that. But there has to be a place
Yes.
for people like
Yes.
yourself to sit at the table without being labeled a sellout.
Oh my God.
Somebody who's being too soft on law enforcement.
Oh my
Can you
God.
just talk about the importance of every aspect? I see that Councilman Andre Horton spoke out. He's a city councilman, and he was measured and respectful with his tone.
Yeah.
He is in a position to influence policy coming out of City Hall.
Absolutely.
That is an angle that our
Absolutely.
community needs, and Dre has the wisdom and the maturity to understand that, and I could read that in his work. Can you talk about the necessity of us activating every aspect of the legislation, media, pastoral? Talk about that.
You know, that was the nature of the meeting last night overall, was how to best support these young people. And let me say this to any of you all who organize and are rightfully, justly protesting and carrying the torch for Marchello. We've been waiting for you. We've been waiting for you, and this moment makes me feel so good. We are proud of you. Long as you all stay the course, stay together. Do not allow negativity to infiltrate you. You are doing a great job, and we are trying to uphold you from our platforms, from our positions. But stop and think with me for a minute. He spoke about Councilman Andre Horton, city councilman now, Andre Horton. Him being at that table and going through those doors, myself and others, may be the reason why the demonstrations are able to go on without
Excellent
being
point.
attacked
Excellent
by
point.
law enforcement. It just may be the reason why the demonstrations are being received peacefully and not being clapped back at. And I'm not saying it is or it ain't, but it could be. So it's not like we're not fighting from our platform, but it is so wrong. It is so wrong for brothers and sisters who have given their life in dedication and service to this community to be ostracized and even attacked for simply showing up at their job and their position. That's not cool. And that's not how we win. And that's not the message you really want to send an enemy in the first place. United we stand, divided we fall. That really, really means something. It really, really means something. And for you young organizers and you young lions that are roaring and carrying this torch, remember this. Before you go at somebody, check their resume. Check their resume. And make sure you're building you a resume of works in our community. Because a lot of these people that are being bashed have resumes. And you can look in their resume and see fruit that they've borne for this community. Whether you like it or not, they have made adjustments and changes in this community for the better. And I can name them. They've got, listen, NAACP, we got a community college. Brother Andre Horton, we got a community college now. That community college will give each and every one of us a platform and a stepping stone to get an education and certifications that we need to get the job of our dreams. So don't be so quick. Let's don't feed on each other.
Right.
Let's don't feed on each other. Let's feed on the energy that Marchello is sending us, that now is our time to break through. And let's get that breakthrough. But more than anything, let's do not divide, because we're going to lose if we do.
That is an excellent note to end this interview on. Let me just say on behalf of Black Access Media, we appreciate you coming and giving of your time, putting all of this in context. We appreciate you, the listener, the viewer, for taking time to watch this interview. And here at Black Access Media, it is our fervent prayer that justice is done for Marchello Woodard, for his family, and that we ask that the process is allowed to play out, that as Brother D pointed out, everybody plays their part and works towards that end of justice, and that all is said, done, and acted upon is in respectful memory of Marchello Woodard and in harmony with the wishes and the respect for the grief of his family. Marcus Atkinson, you've been listening to Brother D, and this has been Black Access Media. Thank you for tuning in.